The commodity super cycle is underway. நமக்காக இந்த டாப்பிக்கை ப்ரெசென்ட் பண்ணியிருக்காங்க திரு ஞானசேகரன் தியாகராஜன் அவர்கள், co-founder and CEO Comtrends Research. He is one of the India's leading commodity market expert and alumnus of IIT Madras with 30 years of experience in commodity. He has worked with global institutions and was awarded the best commodity analyst in India. Let's welcome திரு ஞானசேகரன் சார் அவர்கள்.
குட் ஆஃப்டர்நூன். என்னால் அந்த அளவுக்கு தமிழ் பேச முடியுமான்னு தெரியல, பட் ஐ வில் ட்ரை மை பெஸ்ட். ஸோ அப்படி உங்களுக்கு ஏதாவது நான் சொல்கிறதுல டவுட் இருந்ததோ உங்களுக்கு புரியலன்னா யூ ஜஸ்ட் ஸ்டாப் மீ அட் தட் டைம். ஐ டோன்ட் மைண்ட் ஹேவிங் அன் இன்டராக்டிவ் செஷன். இது வந்து நான் கமாடிட்டிஸில் பீன் there for almost 25 to 30 years, more than 25. So I've seen the evolution of commodity markets in India. The kind of interest markets have generated. இது பார்த்தீங்கன்னா 2005 when MCX was introduced, MCX started future contracts. I used to be regularly invited in CNBC. At that time, even the anchors in CNBC television, அவங்களுக்கு இதை பற்றி ஐடியாவே கிடையாது. ஸோ அகெயின் அண்ட் அகெயின் சேம் கொஸ்டின் will keep coming. நான் சோயாபீன் வாங்கினா எனக்கு வீட்டுக்கு வந்து டெலிவரி வந்துடுமா? இதுதான் வந்து திருப்பி 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 கேட்பாங்க. There was a very senior anchor by name Sendil Chengalvarayan. I'm talking about 2004, 2005. So அந்த மாதிரி ஸ்டேஜில் இருந்த மார்க்கெட் ஹேஸ் எவால்வ் டுடே அண்ட் இன்வெஸ்டர்ஸ் ஆர் லுக்கிங் டு கமாடிட்டிஸ் ஆஸ் அ அசெட் கிளாஸ். ஸோ ஐ எம் வெரி கிளாட் டு see that in the first place because we worked so hard at that time to bring it to this stage. உங்களுக்கு கமாடிட்டிஸ்னாலே ஸ்ட்ரெயிட்டாகவே ஞாபகம் வர்றது வந்து கோல்டு சில்வர் தான். Because that is the most prominent asset which even all the previous speakers and even mutual funds, they recommend you have to have a diversified portfolio and it should be in gold and silver when it comes to commodities. But commodities in pathina, it's a universe by itself. Not many people realize the number of commodities that are available. But the problem is physical marketனு ஒன்று இருக்குது. இப்போது எப்படி உங்களுக்கு ஸ்டாக் மார்க்கெட்டில் யூ ஹேவ் அன் ஓடிசி மார்க்கெட் அண்ட் டெரிவேட்டிவ்ஸ் மார்க்கெட், ஃபியூச்சர்ஸ் மார்க்கெட். Similarly in commodities you have a physical market, but that physical market is meant for physical trading. As an investor you cannot participate. அதுதான் இதில் பெரிய டிஃப்ரென்ஸ். ஸோ நீங்கள் கமாடிட்டிஸ்னாலே இமீடியட்டாக உங்களுக்கு வந்து இந்த எம்சிஎக்ஸ் ஃபியூச்சர்ஸ் தான் தோணும், இல்லாட்டி இந்த கோல்டு ETF அப்படி தான் தோணும். But there are many other commodities. And in fact today the most talked about is crude oil because it has an impact across the board all over the entire market. இப்போ க்ரூட் என்ன ஆகுதோ அதை பொறுத்து தான் உங்களுக்கு ஸ்டாக் மார்க்கெட் மூவ் ஆகுது, அதை பொறுத்து தான் உங்களுக்கு மற்ற மார்க்கெட்லாம் மூவ் ஆகுது. So it is very important to understand commodities and commodity cycle. ஏன்னா அதை வச்சு தான் வந்து யூ கேன் ஆக்சுவலி யூஸ் மேக்ரோஎக்கனாமிக் இண்டிகேட்டர்ஸ். மேக்ரோஎக்கனாமிக்னா த மோர் பிகர் பிக்சர் தட் வி கேன் டிட்டர்மைன். ஸோ வாட் ஐ டூ இஸ் ஐ ஒர்க் வித் கார்பரேட்ஸ் ஃபார் commodity procurement. இப்போ வந்து காட்டன் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா இங்கே there will be lot of many companies in this belt. இந்த மதுரை திண்டுக்கல் சைட்லாம் நிறைய ஸ்பின்னிங் மில்ஸ் are there. So recently cotton prices have gone up like anything. அதில் வந்து அவங்களுக்குலாம் ஒரு பெரிய பெனிஃபிட் பிகாஸ் தே ஹவ் பாட் காட்டன் அட் லோவர் ப்ரைஸஸ் அண்ட் தே மேக் ஃபேப்ரிக் அண்ட் yarn அண்ட் செல் இட். ஸோ தே வில் கெட் அ மச் ஹையர் ப்ராஃபிட்டபிலிட்டி. இதுலேருந்து ஆஸ் அன் இன்வெஸ்டர் வாட் இஸ் யுவர் டேக் அவே? ஸோ வென் யூ ஆர் ஏபிள் டு கேட்ச் திஸ் சைக்கிள், இப்போ கமாடிட்டி காட்டன் ப்ரைஸ் ஒரு பாட்டம்லேருந்து மேலே போயிருக்கு ஒரு சர்டன் பர்சன்டேஜ்னா what impact will it have on companies that either produce it or consume it? Either as an investor, if you are able to identify closely, this is another opportunity for you to explore as an investor to generate returns. The previous speaker nicely explained about alpha and identifying, doing your own research. So இதை நீங்கள் வந்து ஆட் பண்ணிக்கோங்க உங்கள் ரிசர்ச்சில். எப்படி வந்து commodity price cycle affects what all companies. See, அந்த டைமில் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, I'm talking about 25 years back, it was so difficult to get information. Today, everything is available on the internet. So if you want to analyze a particular company, it'll do everything and give it to you. அதே மாதிரி to identify even a particular company in an industry, it can do all that. So it's very easy these days. So in the commodity cycle, how to apply it on your investment in stocks, this is, and how you marry it, that's the most difficult part. But at the same time, once you understand the commodity cycle, then it will become easier and easier. And generating returns. See, the biggest risk, of course, is commodity cycles are short term in nature. They're not long term. இப்போ உங்களுக்கு அந்த சூப்பர் சைக்கிள் மாதிரி, லைக் இன் ஸ்டாக்ஸ் இட் கீப்ஸ் ஆன் கோயிங் அப், அந்த மாதிரி கிடையாது. இட் வில் ஹாவ் ரீட்ரேஸ்மெண்ட்ஸ், அன்லைக் அண்ட் ஷார்ப் ரீட்ரேஸ்மெண்ட்ஸ், நாட் நார்மல் ரீட்ரேஸ்மெண்ட். இப்போ ஒரு 10% ஏறிச்சுன்னா உங்களுக்கு ஸ்டாக்ஸ் வந்து இட் மைட் கரெக்ட் பை 2-3% and then continue the upside. But commodities அப்படி இருக்காது. You might have all seen how gold and silver moved up and suddenly how sharply it's corrected, because that's the nature of commodities. உங்களுக்கு ஈக்விட்டிஸ் மாதிரி அப்படியே ஃபர்மாக ஸ்டெடியாக மூவ் பண்ணாது. இட் வில் ஹாவ் சம் வெரி ஷார்ப் அப்ஸ் அண்ட் டவுன்ஸ். ஸோ தட் இஸ் ஒன் திங் யூ ஹவ் டு பி ப்ரிப்பேர்ட் டு டேக் த ஷாக்ஸ். ஸோ வாட் இஸ் அ சூப்பர் சைக்கிள் இன் கமாடிட்டிஸ்? ஸோ ஒரு சூப்பர் சைக்கிள்ன்றது இட் பேசிக்லி ஸ்டார்ட்ஸ் ஃப்ரம் சப்ளை சைட். ஸோ யூ ஹாவ் டூ சைட்ஸ் இன் கமாடிட்டிஸ். ஒன் இஸ் அ டிமாண்ட் சைட் அண்ட் சப்ளை சைட். The super cycle generally starts when there is supply side inflation. Supply side inflation, இப்போ ஒரு commodity பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, இப்போ now the most talked about thing in inflation is crude oil. But what is the future? இப்போ நீங்கள் like sir said in the previous session, once in the war settle ஆச்சு, situation settle ஆச்சுன்னா crude prices will come down. Then the market's attention will move away somewhere else. But what is next? What everyone is talking about, or what markets are anticipating, is a super El Nino which is expected. Now, நீங்கள் El Ninoலாம் கேள்விப்பட்டிருப்பீங்க. It's a weather phenomenon. So அது வந்து it is a heating of Atlantic, and it has an impact, that weather has an impact across the globe. So in the varsha வந்து super El Nino, which is it will be very hot, the weather will be very dry. Why it is important is because it will have an impact on all the agricultural commodities. இப்போ நம்ம வந்து வெறும் க்ரூடோட இன்ஃப்ளேஷனை தான் பார்த்துருக்கோமே தவிர, we haven't seen the inflation rise because of agricultural produce. That is yet to come, which will probably, again, see, it's an event risk. Weather, it is absolutely unpredictable. Suddenly it will become very normal in the next 3 months. But as per prediction models, there is a good chance of a super El Nino this year. So there are many agricultural crops that are going to get affected. So idnala, how do you plan your investment, or how do you do your portfolio allocation? There's a different strategy that you have to do. So உங்களுக்கு அந்த சூப்பர் சைக்கிள்ன்றது it's like a big cycle that begins. எனக்கு தெரிஞ்சு it started back much before 2000, the super cycle. That is a time when a lot of interest was generated in commodities globally, not only in India. And even before that, commodities were traded actively. But appada vandu, I think investors slowly got an idea of what it is. And the beginning of that super cycle started every time there was a crude price related inflation. Ippiyum adhe dhaan we are going through. So இதுதான் இந்த structural tightening phase னு சொல்றது, where the problem of the actual commodity tightening that takes place. ஒரு physical tightening வர ஆரம்பிச்சிருக்கும். ஆக்சுவலாக பார்த்தீங்கன்னா in my future charts I'll show you. ஸோ இதுதான் வந்து க்ரூட் ஆயிலோட ப்ரைஸ் சார்ட் அது. பட் நீங்கள் இந்த நவம்பர் டைம் பார்த்தீங்கன்னு வச்சுக்கோங்க, கீழே யூ ஹேவ் தி எக்ஸ் அண்ட் ஒய் ஆக்சஸ். இதில் கீழே பார்த்தீங்கன்னா நவம்பர் டிசம்பர் 2026க்குலாம் முன்னாடி there was a very stable period where it was somewhere around $55-60 crude oil price. அந்த சமயத்தில் there was a lot of talk that there is immense supply of crude. Supply வந்து ப்ராப்ளமே கிடையாது. You have so much of supply. And in fact, this much before this was the Russian invasion of Ukraine. அப்போ வந்து almost $100 மேலே போயிட்டு திருப்பி கீழே வந்தது. So every time crude oil prices rise above $100, அது என்ன ஆகும்னா it creates a supply tightness immediately. But it's also a price sensitivity. So price ஏற உங்களுக்கு வந்து people start switching from fossil fuel to alternative energy, which is passenger vehicle like EV, then wind, solar, idlame வந்து alternative energy. But once they have shifted, they will not shift back again to fossil fuels. It will be continuing, but the shift will slowly eat away the fossil fuel market share. So actually the energy markets is not in tight supply. There is enough supplies. Always it's an oversupplied market. Always. But the current situation is a little different. Production ஆகுமா இல்லையான்னு தெரியாத ஒரு situation இப்போ. And whether we'll be able to get those supplies or not, because everything is stuck in that Hormuz Strait. But please remember, as a country, we were importing a lot of crude oil from Russia, not from Middle East, till last year. After that, it was Trump who put a tariff. நீங்கள் ரஷ்யாலேருந்து இம்போர்ட் பண்ணால் உங்களுக்கு எக்ஸ்ட்ரா எவ்வளோ டேரிஃப் போடுவோம். அதனால் இப்போ தான் ரீசெண்ட்லி வி ஸ்விட்ச்ட் ஓவர் டு மிடில் ஈஸ்ட். அவங்க இந்த பேலன்ஸ் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா தட் இஸ் ஹவு மச் வி இம்போர்ட் ஃப்ரம் மிடில் ஈஸ்ட், ஹவு மச் வி இம்போர்ட் ஃப்ரம் ரஷ்யா, ஹவு மச் வி இம்போர்ட் ஃப்ரம் அதர் டெஸ்டினேஷன்ஸ். Russia was the highest. Middle East was third actually, because second was Nigeria, West Africa, Venezuela. இங்கேருந்து இதுதான் நம்மளோட ஜாஸ்தி இதுவும். தேர்ட் தான் மிடில் ஈஸ்ட். பட் பிகாஸ் ஆஃப் திஸ் ட்ரம்போட அனௌன்ஸ்மெண்ட்னால தான் நம்ம in between we had to increase the market share to Middle East. அதனால வந்த பிரச்சனை தான் அது. So it's a very well supplied market as far as crude oil is concerned. But இந்த supply tightening வரும்போது தான் வந்து suddenly there is a increase in price, and that start affects. இப்போ ஒரு increaseனா ஒரு 5% 10% is okay. But when it goes above 50%, then it starts hurting the common man. That is when a lot of noise is made. If there is a talk that there will be an increase in fuel prices next week or a week later. So all this will impact what? If or fuel price increase achu now, as a common investor, it is just a question I want to toss. What is the impact? Anyone? Price of? Essentials will increase. Correct. So, but if you take it one step higher, which stocks you think will be benefited by it or affected by it? So, invariably across the board, everything will be affected. Because even for any organization, even if it's FMCG or any other organization, you need to transport goods from one place to another. So, your transport cost will go up. In every way, your cost is going to rise. So energy price rise is not something which is insulated to only these companies. Software companies won't have that impact. It's not like that. It's across the board. Which is why once this announcement comes, I'm not an expert in stocks, but I expect a lot of impact on the stock markets, because it's a very generalized impact. Anyway, so the point why I'm saying is, you should not ignore commodity price action. It is no more something which you can ignore as an investor. Like, ஏதோ crude ஏறுது இறங்குதுன்னு அதை ஒரு சைடில் பார்ப்பீங்க, but it becomes the mainline story now, and not just now, even going forward. It is very, very important to track many commodity prices because it directly impacts. As a thumb of rule, which I have noticed, is that if commodity prices rise by, let's say, 5 to 10%, அதோட impact on the companies which either produce or consume is at least 5x minimum. Sometimes it is 10, 20 also, because it's an impact it has on their P&L straight away. So it's very important to catch these cycles whenever it is bottoming. So you can use various techniques for that. I mean, if you have more interest, you can look at fundamental information like the supply demand data, destination data, source data, where it is produced, where it goes, how is the demand there. இதெல்லாம் வந்து கொஞ்சம் intricate-ஆ நீங்க analyze பண்ணீங்கன்னா you can go more deeper into it. Or if you want to just do it in a more superficial manner, then simply look at the price. You get price charts of most of these commodities. So that will also help to some extent. But if you want to go deeper and analyze, then you go into a lot of other information also. So this energy transition is something which I just talked about, how this EV and alternative energy has a big impact. Yeah, so electrification and AI infrastructure is something again which is related to industrial metals. I don't know how much and the AI in pathale. What do you think, which commodity is maximum used in AI? Can I just toss this question? Yeah, you can answer this. Anyone can answer. Yeah, but there's one more commodity which is copper. You know why? Because copper is there in the wires. நீங்க wire எல்லாம் எப்படி நீங்க AI பண்ணுவீங்க? There's electrification is the most important in AI. But of course, much more than that, there are other companies and other things we can look at. But copper is the main source ingredient for AI. So that's why recently pathina copper prices have shot up. But how do you identify these things as an investor, and how do you benefit? That is a big catch. So inference is very important as far as commodities is concerned. Equities pathina, you have to go through a lot of numbers to understand the quality of a company. Commodities la apdi kadiyadu. You need to have this faculty of inference. Middle East la or incident nadandadana, how it is going to impact the companies in India. So that inference is going to be a very, very important thing as far as an investor. So if in the 2 to 3 rupees price increase aachina, I asked you this question before, which all companies it will impact. So specific question is, which companies will benefit if 2 to 3 rupees goes up? Oil refining companies. Yeah. So this is the inference. Just simple examples I'm giving. I can go deeper into the subject and ask you more questions, but simple this. So as soon as that announcement comes, this is the first thing you can look at. Which stocks it will benefit, which stocks it will affect. The consuming stocks, it will be affected. So this inference model works very well in commodities, and how you marry that in stocks, that becomes an amazing thing, because what I've noticed is as soon as AI was announced, so we knew what all commodities will go in AI. But I must tell you, because I'm in the mid-50s, so I'm no more looking at all this from a Gen Z perspective. But my son who's here in the audience, so he finished his masters in the UK and he's come and he's working with me now. He came up with something which just blew my mind. So everyone is talking about AI, everyone, I mean, I've identified copper and a few metals, but he identified one company which he felt will do extremely well in AI. And I don't know if you all heard about this company called Seagate. Seagate, no, it's a hardware, hard disk manufacturer. So because you need a lot of hard disk for AI, you have to keep on storing information, right? It just didn't strike me. So I was only looking at it from the commodity perspective. But he was able to see it from a different perspective altogether. So this is how inference works. So which commodity, how well it works, and what is the impact it's going to have on stocks. Because like I said before, in the thumb rule padi, if some impact happens on commodities, it has a certain bigger impact on the P&L and balance sheet of companies. So that is a key takeaway that I would like you all to go with. You have fundamental drivers. So like I said, you need to do a lot of fundamental research. You get a lot of tips, so many information that comes and goes, but you have to do your own homework. And today all this information is available to you. You need to just keep questioning. See, the best thing about commodities is, as an investor, if you're starting to understand commodities, you don't have to get confused by news, you don't have to get confused by all the data that comes. You simply start tracking the price. Just start tracking the price. And then start questioning why it went down and why it went up. So over a period of time, you will get to know most of the factors that influence the commodities. Over a period of time, not immediately though. So that is how we also learned. See, when I really started having an interest in commodities, when I was told to write a column on gold, palm oil and cotton. Hindu Business Line told me to write a column. I'm talking about early 2000. So it's a weekly column that I used to write, purely from a price perspective, not from fundamentals or demand supply. When I was doing that, it was an eye-opener for me because it took a couple of years, but in that 2 years, I could understand what was impacting the price. So this is the way you can actually start. If you are confused, if you're not clear how to go about, this is the best way. Just take the price and keep following it every day. And question it. Why did it go up today? Go check the news that impacted the price. So this is the best way to learn commodities. So it should not be something which is confusing or it's magic. This is the most simplest way. So you can also use technical analysis. The same technical analysis which you use in stocks, you can use in commodities also. In fact, the very concept of technical analysis came from commodities. The Japanese candlestick, there's a technique called Japanese candlestick. It came from Japan in rice futures markets back in 1700s. From there, all this was taken into US and then they started applying it in stock markets. So it's a very old concept meant for commodities. So it works brilliantly in commodities. In fact, I would say it works much better in commodities than in stocks, simply because of the seasonal nature of commodities, and it's fairly more predictable because of the seasonal nature. So anyway, this is a technical view I've just put on copper just to give an idea. So metal prices, how it has gone up in the last year or two. And again, this is largely thanks to AI-driven demand. This is the reason why copper prices went up. What is it showing right now? Technically, it is showing some kind of a saturation point because growth is going to be hurt. But because of this AI demand, you will not see much of a decline. பெருசா இறங்கிறதுக்கான வாய்ப்பு இல்லை காப்பர் prices or metal prices as a whole. But the problem that we are seeing in the economy because of crude, அது வந்து it's going to affect all demand across the board in different in different areas, including AI to some extent. Anyway, so it's a technical view that I have put on copper. So this is something which I would like to touch upon because I think there is a lot of misinterpretation when it comes to inflation and bullion. Normally, bullion is called an inflationary hedge, which means when inflation rises, bullion tends to perform well. Bullion, I'm talking about gold and silver. Now today the definition of bullion itself has changed because silver is more like an industrial metal. It is no more just pure precious metal. We have to understand the importance of inflation and gold especially because a lot of people recommend you to keep a certain allocation in gold and silver. First thing you have to understand is gold it is a zero yielding instrument, meaning it doesn't give a dividend. It doesn't give a fixed interest like a fixed income product. So, it only works on a future potential to appreciate. Because of certain factors. And the certain factors earlier was uncertainty. That played a very key role of why gold and silver prices went up. But now it is not. Even though there is a lot of uncertainty, why it's not going up now is because the inflationary impact of crude oil price inflation ஜாஸ்தி ஆகிடும். அப்போ என்ன ஆகும்னா interest rates மேலே போகிறதுக்கான வாய்ப்பு ஜாஸ்தி ஆகும். Because to bring down inflation interest rates will go up. So the cost of holding gold will also keep going up. The interest rate goes up, then the cost of holding gold goes up, then that will erode the value. So it is not preferred in this time, even though the uncertainty angle will take prices up. But because of this pressure on crude oil and that inflationary impact, it is not going up now. But having said that, what is the potential for it, for both gold and silver? The long-term drivers remain the same, it hasn't changed. But the only problem is you need to know when to invest in gold and when not to. Just adding to the portfolio won't work here because it is not like an SIP product. I keep telling this to many of my friends and investors. You should know when to, just blindly just adding 10% won't help. You should also use some amount of discretion as to when to add and when not to. It's difficult as an investor because everyone is not expected to do research. But இருந்தாலும் நீங்கள் எப்போ அந்த allocation increase பண்ணுறது எப்போ decrease பண்ணுறதுன்றது you have to actively keep reviewing it. So பார்த்தீங்கன்னா அந்த peak price was somewhere in February time, exactly when that war began. அதுக்கப்புறமா it started coming down. In fact, in the Indian rupee terms, it hasn't come down much. The reason is the Indian rupee currency or the value has depreciated a lot against the dollar. So, the impact has not been felt that much. But if the rupee was stable and then this happened, so all this is very important to understand the technical price drivers for gold, how much of an impact it can have. The only thing you have to very closely watch is the developments in this Middle East when it changes. When it changes, the prospects for gold will also change and it will again be back to the long-term uptrend. So at this point in time, it is I wouldn't recommend any trades, but I'm just saying that this time is not a good time to park your money in gold. But if you see a decline and if you see change in the macro environment, especially geopolitical environment, appo neenga vandu you can start increasing your allocation. But please keep in mind at that time, what might happen when this war scenario changes is the rupee weakening will stop and it will start appreciating. Appo ungalku the value of the gold you're holding in rupees will start going down. So it's a double-edged sword as far as gold is concerned, because it's not just pure gold you're investing in. It involves a currency also. The USD ஏன்னா நீங்கள் வந்து இப்போ நம்ம இம்போர்ட் தானே பண்ணுறோம் கோல்டு. ஸோ அதை நீங்கள் டாலரில் கன்வெர்ட் பண்ணி தானே then you bring it into rupee terms, right? So the play of USD INR is very, very important, and especially the dollar. So these are all things that you have to take into account. So silver again, is something which did extremely well, and everyone is talking about the fabulous returns that it gave. But if you see the chart, you will see from this is just for 2 years, but if you go back also, it has underperformed for a very, very, very long time. For decades, it's been underperforming. So it's catching up with gold now. And it has also moved away from being called a precious metal, and it is used effectively in industrial metals right now. It's used in EVs, it's used in solar panels. Earlier it was only in photography. In the digital photography, silver is used a lot. When the positive, negative, the negative development, that was where silver was majorly used at that time. After that, it completely dropped. The demand just dropped for silver. So it is only treated as a proxy to gold. இப்போ என்னால் வந்து கோல்டு அஃபோர்ட் பண்ண முடியல, அப்போ வந்து வேறு வழியே இல்லாமல் கொஞ்சம் வெள்ளியில் ஏதாவது பண்ணுவோம். That is how it was looked at. But now it is in par with gold. In fact, it's been now treated as a rare earth metal. US has announced silver is a rare earth metal, which means more buying will take place. Since it's a rare earth metal, அது ஒரு different complex altogether. I think we won't have time to discuss about rare earth metals, but silver has been included in that. So the prospects for silver is extremely good even going forward. So all these declines are, as an investor, you should watch out. எங்கெங்கெல்லாம் இது வந்து support ஆகுது, international prices, and you can correlate it with the domestic price. So it's very, very important to track silver because it still has a lot of potential. At least gold வந்து உங்களுக்கு, if it goes up by 20% from here, silver can go up by at least another 100% from here. That is the amount of potential silver has. And the main problem is, நீங்கள் silver mining னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, where silver is actually mined, you don't have any exclusive mines. நீங்கள் மற்ற commodities like metals, copper, aluminum, zinc, இதெல்லாம் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா you have exclusive mines which are mining these commodities. But silver is like a byproduct of these other commodities. It doesn't come separately. There are only few mines. I think in Mexico there is one big mine for silver. அதை தவிர உங்களுக்கு வேறு பெரிய இதுவே கிடையாது. So the supply side is extremely restricted, but the demand for silver keeps on rising. So it's a potential to rise is extremely high as far as silver is concerned. So what you're seeing today is just the beginning. It has a long way to go. So food security will be the next important concern as far as the market is concerned. Commodity markets. The main thing I wanted to convey today is, you've seen the crude oil situation that is impacting, but the weather which will, the super El Nino which I talked about earlier, will have a big impact on food supplies. So energy related inflation is what you've seen, but food related inflation is going to come. So if you relate it to your stock markets, it's not good at all. I'm not here to paint a very bearish picture on the markets. Things can change positively also, but looking at purely from a commodity point of view, it doesn't look good at all. As of now, our CPI, WPI and all is under control. But once this weather-based inflation starts impacting, the next 6 months, the P&L numbers will start coming. Then you will see the big problem that's coming. So in the agriculture-related companies which you're holding, you must be very careful. Either you like, I mean, I'm not going to recommend anything, but I'm simply saying these are the things that you have to keep in mind. So with that, I'll end the session. If there are any questions, I'm willing to take. Please. Yeah.
Thank you for this wonderful session, sir. Sir, என்னோட கொஸ்டின் வந்து லாஸ்ட்டு ஒரு 1 வீக்காக வந்து இதுக்கு முன்னாடி வந்து எல்னினோ சூப்பர் எல்னினோ பிரச்சனை கண்டிப்பாக இந்த வருஷம் இருக்க போது நமக்கு தெரியும். ஸோ கமாடிட்டியை வந்து எப்படி நம்ம நிறைய எப்படி வந்து இனிமேல் வந்து கிராப்ஸாக சரி அல்லது வந்து நமக்கு தேவையான ஃபுட் ப்ராடக்ட் லைக் ரைஸ் அண்ட் வீட்டு வந்து எப்படி மேனேஜ் பண்ண போகிறதுக்குலாம் கவர்மெண்ட் டீட்டெயில்ஸாக இன்ஃபர்மேஷன் கொடுத்தாங்க. பட் அன்ஃபார்ச்சுனேட்டாக லாஸ்ட்டு 4 டேஸில் தான் நமக்கு நிறையா இது வரைக்கும் நம்ம பார்க்காத ஈவெண்ட்ஸ்லாம் நடந்துகிட்டு இருக்குது. ஃபஸ்ட் பாயிண்ட் வந்து WPI வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா இது வரைக்கும் இல்லாத அளவுக்கு இன்க்ரீஸ் ஆகிருக்கு. ஸோ தென் டெஃபினட்டாக வந்து பார்த்தா RPIயும் வந்து இன்னும் நாளில் வந்து மேபி அனதர் குவார்ட்டர்லையோ அல்லது அனதர் 3 டேஸ்லையோ நமக்கு இன்ஃபர்மேஷன் கொடுக்கலாம். நமக்கு இன்ஃப்ளேஷன் ரேட் ஆக்சுவல் ரீட்டைல் இன்ஃப்ளேஷன் ரேட் எப்படி இருக்க போகுதுன்னு. ஸோ எப்படி நம்மளை ஹெட்ஜ் பண்ணிக்க போகிறோம் சார்? ஸோ எனக்கு வந்து நல்லா தெரியுது என்னோடய ஸ்டாக்ஸ் எதுவுமே வந்து பெர்ஃபார்ம் பண்ணாதுன்றது நல்லா தெரியும். மோரோவர் வந்து என்கிட்ட இருக்கிற கேஷ் வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா டெஃபினட்டாக சீக்கிரமாக காலியாக போகுதுன்னு எனக்கு நல்லா தெரியும். என்னோட இன்வெஸ்ட்மெண்ட் எதுவுமே வந்து இன்க்ரீஸ் ஆகுமான்றது 100% கொஸ்டினாக தான் இருக்குது. மோரோவர் வந்து சில்வரும் கோல்டும் வந்து எந்த அளவுக்கு என்னை வந்து ஓகே அது நம்ம அசட் கிளாஸில் இருந்தாலுமே வந்து மேபி அது வந்து சின்ன ஹெட்ஜிங் பாயிண்ட்டாக தான் இருக்கும்னு எனக்கு தோணுது. ஸோ பட் எப்படி வந்து இந்த இன்ஃப்ளேஷனையும் என்னோடய இன்வெஸ்ட்மெண்ட்டையும் நான் ஹெட்ஜ் பண்ணிக்கிறது, இதுக்கு கமாடிட்டியில் என்ன பாசிபிலிட்டி இருக்குது சார்? ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் நான் வந்து ஃபியூச்சரில் மட்டும் தான் இப்போதைக்கு நான் இன்வால்வ் ஆக முடியும். ஸோ ஃபியூச்சரில் எனக்கு போக விருப்பம் இல்லை, நான் ஃபண்ட்ஸில் இன்வெஸ்ட் பண்ணுறேன் அல்லது வந்து ஸ்டாக்ஸில் இன்வெஸ்ட் பண்ணுறேன் அப்படின்னா என்ன மாதிரியான ஹெட்ஜ் பாயிண்ட்ஸை நான் யூஸ் பண்ணிக்கலாம் சார்?
இந்த கொஸ்டினுக்கு வந்து என்னால் டைரெக்டாக ஆன்சர் பண்ண முடியாது. ஏன்னா இங்கே அக்ரிகல்ச்சரல் கமாடிட்டிஸ்ன்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா த மோஸ்ட் இம்பார்ட்டண்ட் ஒன்ஸ் வேர் ஃபுட் இன்ஃப்ளேஷன் இஸ் கன்சர்ன், edible oils, pulses, இது எல்லாமே பேண்ட். It was there before and it got banned. Now every time when there is a price increase, a lot of noise will be made and they will ban the futures. இதுதான் ஆயன் இருக்கு. Otherwise you had an agricultural commodity hedge, but you don't have one. It's there only for selective commodities. So அது வந்தா only தான் உங்களுக்கு அந்த hedging opportunity is possible. Otherwise no. Otherwise, the only natural hedge is lighten up your portfolios where you are holding all these stocks. That is the only hedge I can recommend. But there are experts in equities who can tell you more than that. But commodities side, it is very limited. Your ability to hedge is very limited as an Indian investor. But commodities are traded very actively in overseas exchanges, which as an investor you cannot participate. Because you need to transfer margins in dollars, which the government won't allow. It's treated as speculative. So, உங்களுக்கு இங்கே Indian exchangesல any other agricultural commodities which are traded as of now, like I think still some of them are traded, turmeric, then அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு list is there, still it's there. So, அதெல்லாம் நீங்கள் you can try to buy these commodities and futures and you know take a chance. But of course, with a defined stop loss, on the update just like that you can't buy. If it goes below a certain value, you should be ready to accept that the view has gone wrong and exit the position.
Thank you so much, Gnanasekhar sir. That was a detailed view on commodities. திரு ஞானசேகர் அவர்களுக்கு நினைவு பரிசு வழங்குவதற்காக மிஸ்டர் பாலாஜி CTO Magic 20 தமிழ் அவர்களை மேடைக்கு அழைக்கிறேன்.